Hello and welcome to this unit showcase for the Norsca army in Total War Warhammer. So we're going to be taking a closer look at the unit models for the Norscan army, and as you can see they have a pretty extensive roster. They have a lot of different infantry, cavalry, monstrous units and some flying units as well, so they have a very interesting roster. I'm currently playing a Norsca campaign, and I've played with some of these units but not all of them yet. There's a lot to unlock, so we're going to be taking a closer look at them in this custom battle. So we've had to set the funds very high, as you can see, just to get them all included, and we've selected Throgg as our legendary lord, and we've got a few heroes, not all of them because some of them are just multiple heroes of the same type. So you've got Shaman Sorcerer Metal, Shaman Sorcerer Fire, and we've just got the one with the metal. Okay, let's jump in. So we're not going to be looking too in depth at their stats, it's more just to look at the unit models, the detail. There's some very nice looking units. So we've also got the regiments of renown included here as well, so we can see how they vary. So we're just going to be working our way through, taking a look at each one in turn. I've actually just recruited my first mammoth in my campaign, so I'm quite excited to use that in battle. The only problem with playing as Norsca is that you really want to fit all of these guys into one army, but you can't. So you've got to be a bit picky about what you have. Okay, let's well, we'll leave them where they are for now. They're all nicely lined up for us. As you can see, it's a bit of a mess of unit cards down there. So let's start with Throgg. I didn't get a good chance to see him in the campaign yet, so we can use K to hide the UI and N to zoom in, so we can have a nice good look at his model. There you can see that little crown on his tooth, some swords out of his back, a nice flowing cape. So let's take a look at him. He's armor piercing, he's a melee expert, he gets frostbite and regeneration, so he's a very powerful lord. I haven't really had a chance to put him into use in the campaign yet. Okay, let's go to our next unit. So this is one of the hero units, a Shaman Sorcerer. So he's a human unit. Let's have a zoom in on him. He's very excited. Now these come with different spell types. We've got the metal one. Now next hero is the Familiar Balfiend. So he's another spellcaster. In this case we have the fire ability. So he's a lovely glowing purple hand. And kind of a creepy looking guy. The Familiar are creepy looking dudes. Okay, next up we have our Skinwolf Werekin, and I've actually just got one of these in my campaign, and they are very fun units to look at and just to throw into battle. We've got one called Olaf, and he's quickly become a favourite. So they're anti-large, they're dummy dealers, and they get frenzy as well. The Skinwolf units, which we'll be seeing a little later, are also really good. So yeah, I really like the way these guys look. They're a lot of fun. The one I've got in the campaign, Olaf, has the stupid trait, which is wonderful. So really nice little idle animations. It's very pumped up. Okay, so let's take a look at some infantry units. So we've got these are like your basic bog standard early game infantry, Marauder, axe infantry. I've sort of reached a point now, 50 or so turns into the campaign, where I'm no longer really using these guys. They can do a job, but they're more of a meat shield. They soak up fire. There's nothing very special about them. They're an early game unit, sort of tier 1 infantry. They got some cool helmets. They're all very burly. That's something you'll notice about Norsca. All the men are very burly. The problem in the early game in Norsca when you're fighting other Norsca factions is it's actually hard to tell the units apart. When you're mixed up, you know, enemy marauders and your marauders, you can't tell who is who. So then we've got some Marauder Spearmen. These I'm still using in the campaign, less so now, I'm a little further into it. They're anti-large, which is useful, and they have a good charge defense. So these are a similar unit but with spears. Also has some cool helmets. So you'll probably still be keeping some of these around during your campaigns to deal with cavalry and monsters. Okay, next we have our Marauders with great weapons. Let's shove these guys up here. And these are more of the same kind of infantry type in terms of how they look, but they've got really, really big axes and more spikes. I haven't found these guys very useful. In fact, I'm already starting to replace the ones I've got. But they're, for the early game, you have a couple of these in an army and they'll do a bit of damage. So now we've got the Ice War Marauders. Now these are a regiment of renown for the normal Marauders. I did use these in the campaign for a bit. They do a good bit of damage. And you see they've got a bit more fur on them. They've got these axes which have a slight glow to them. And they have hands. A lot of them have hands attached to their belts and their chests in case they need an extra hand. They're pretty cool looking guys, but once again a very early game unit. Okay, so let's move on to Marauder Berserkers. Now these guys are pretty handy, and they're the renowned version. So let's look at the normal version first and we'll see how they compare. So these guys are always very pumped up for the fight. They're anti-infantry, they're good damage dealers, they really do get stuck in, but they do tire easily, so you need to be careful how you use them. They're very excitable. So let's take a look at the renowned version, which once again is very similar in terms of how they look, but they have some glowy axes. Also very excited. There you go, anti-infantry, damage dealer, and they have frenzy ability as well. So we've got Marauder Champions, and this is a higher tier infantry unit, kind of the more advanced version of the normal Marauders. These are armoured and shielded. I've just recruited some of these in my campaign. I haven't had a chance to use them yet, but these would be your real solid front line of infantry. Very difficult to break through. Tough, armoured, shielded, cool helmets. These guys are just they'll do a good job. Not spectacular, but they'll do a good job at holding the line. Okay, next up we have the great weapon variation. As you can see, some of them have large hammers and maces. Very cool looking guys. High upkeep cost, but you bring these guys around into the back of an enemy unit and they will smash their way through. Okay, now we've got some Marauder hunters. These are javelins, they're ranged unit, they're skirmishers. You'll probably still be using these throughout the campaign as well. They do a really good job. They're very effective units for their cost, and considering they're just essentially tier 1 infantry. Very powerful. You get these guys throwing their javelins into the flank of an enemy unit and they will just wipe it out. They're really good against cavalry as well. You catch a cavalry unit with these guys and they will just drop quickly. Very effective unit, very powerful. So then we have Marauder hunters. These I'm not such a fan of. Now these have armor piercing missiles, which is great. They're decent on melee, but their range damage isn't that great and their range itself isn't that great. So they're kind of a hybrid unit. They do a decent job at both, but they don't really excel at either. I'd rather have, you know, a solid infantry unit and a solid ranged unit than a mixture of both that doesn't do either quite as well. You'll probably pick up a couple of these in the early game, but whether or not they'll stick around, it's unlikely. Especially when you start getting more monstrous units, which we'll be getting to soon. So first of all, let's go through our cavalry. So we got our chariot first. Let's get these down here. These are very effective against infantry. They're armoured. These really do just plough through units and just tear a chunk right through them. So this is the standard horse-drawn chariot. And then we have the slightly more advanced Ice Wolves chariot. Now these are armoured. They have armour piercing missiles. These are actually ranged as well, but you can get them stuck into melee because they are empty infantry, and they have frostbite, which slows people down around them. And these guys are really effective. Similar in appearance, you look like they've got a berserker on the back, as you can see. Those guys have just got more standard great weapon guys on the back. Some scary wolves. Very good unit. Okay, so we got some more basic horsemen now. So we've got Marauder horsemen. These have vanguard deployment, they're missile cavalry. The funny thing about Norsca is because the men look so burly, they all look a little too big for the horses. See, the horses have a nice little bit of armour. Haven't found these guys very effective. They're okay in the early game, but another unit you'll be replacing quite quickly. So we've got some Marauder horsemen. Let's bring them up here. So these have throwing axes. Just another slightly more advanced missile unit. I haven't really used these guys much. I don't expect to. That's the thing with Norsca. They have a limited army slots and they're a lot of very cool units. So some of these units you probably won't use much during the campaign. Marauder Horsemasters are some of the most advanced cavalry. Also have vanguard deployment. I imagine you'll probably still be using some of these guys in the late game. They have some extra hands as well. And these can be really useful for just luring enemy units away on skirmish mode, sending them around the flanks to pepper enemy units, draw them away from the fight. So let's start getting to some of the cool stuff, which is the monsters. So let's begin with the Norscan warhounds. These are very fast, scaly skin, but these are weak against armour. A lot of large teeth. Some nice little animations on them. We then have the Beast of Teshnar, which is the Regiment of Renown version. So let's see how these guys look a little different. So they don't look a great deal different. You can see there they have a slightly different colour to them. A red mark on the back of the leg there. Then we have the Norscan Ice Wolves. So these are very fast. These also have frostbite. Okay, now we move on to the trolls. So these are your standard Norscan trolls. These are armor piercing, they have regeneration, but poor leadership, so they'll break more easily. And the trolls look great in this game. So they've got some fairly basic clubs, little loincloths. You have a little scratch and sniff. You can see that drool dripping out of their mouths. So we then have the ice trolls. Now these have frostbite, also regeneration, also armor piercing. These guys are very effective. I had a garrison battle with these guys and I put them up against some spearmen and I didn't expect them to do that great, but they did a fantastic job. They really smashed their way through. You see their breath coming out. Very cool looking unit. Okay, now we have one of our flying units, which is the feral Manticore. These cause terror. I've not had the chance to recruit one of these yet in the campaign. So a very frightful looking unit. Swing around, get a nice shot of him. Okay, then we have the Skin Wolves, anti-large frenzy and regeneration. These are one of my favourite units for Norsca. I've had a lot of luck, well not luck, just they're very effective. I mean you just send these guys charging in and they just tear their way through enemy units. They're almost a little too powerful, I would say. Not that I'm complaining, because they do a great job. They're a little bit like a vampire count unit, like the Crypt Horrors. But I'd actually say these guys are more effective. Because they can regenerate, they can just keep going. Very strong unit. Very fun to watch as well. Definitely one of my favourite Norscan units. So we have the armoured Skin Wolves, which I haven't seen yet in my campaign. So these are just an armoured variation. So they're wearing more clothes. So they're a little tougher. So these guys are probably even more powerful. And then we have some Famir. And Famir are another unit I really like for Norsca. These are armoured, they're armour piercing and armour sundering. So very powerful. These guys can just demolish units in front of them. I've got one unit of these in my campaign. And you send them in against the gate of a settlement and they will just punch a hole straight through any line. But they are creepy looking dudes. They're all dinosaur like. So they've got those big maces. Okay, we then have the great weapon variation of them. So even bigger maces. Very cool unit. Then we have some Skin Wolf Renown. Moors of Savagery. So I don't think I've unlocked these yet in my campaign. But I'll probably definitely get them when I do. Because they're very cool looking, very powerful, and I do like my Skin Wolves. Okay, we've got Mist Stalkers, which are Famir Warriors, another regiment of renown. Let's take a look at how these guys look a little different. The renown units don't look too different. See, there's some slight colour differences, slight weapon variations. nothing substantial. Okay, so let's move on to our final few units, which will begin with the Norscan giant. Let's pop him over here. Armor piercing, anti-infantry, and causes terror. He's a very cool looking unit. See, he's got frostbite on his toes, a little shield. We probably don't want to zoom in too close. A lot of arrows in his body. Probably needs a shave. And maybe to see a dentist. So let's slightly closer look, but not too close. He's got a nice big club. He's a top tier monster unit, so you've got to unlock all the top upgrades for your buildings to get him. But when you do, he'll probably be worth it. He's just pondering. Very nice looking unit. Okay, so next up we have Feral Mammoth. Your most basic mammoth. Anti-infantry, causes terror. I'm not sure whether you'll actually recruit these much in the campaign, because when you unlock them you'll also unlock the War Mammoth, which is just more effective. See, he's got a creepy trunk there. You can just zoom in on it. There we go. And then we have the, let's skip over that and go to the War Mammoth, so we can just compare them. So this guy is armoured, but he also has guys with javelins on top as well, so he can do range damage. These guys will chuck javelins down at people. It's a very, very powerful unit. It's a real tank of a unit. Can do a lot of damage, a lot of fantastic detail on this unit as well. You can see all the skulls in the tusks there. You can see our Marauders on the deck. Do you like their skulls, Norsca? Very nice looking unit. Then we have the Soul Crusher War Mammoths. So this is a regiment of renown, the Mammoths. Let's come over here with our others. So he's more of a grey fur to him, this guy. Some red paint. Some rings in his trunk. He's a very cool looking unit. And then our last Mammoth unit is another regiment of renown. Oh, it's not, it's just the normal War Mammoth, but with the War Shrine. So this is another very top tier unit, like the, I believe it's on the same building chain for the Giant. So he has a little sorcerer guy on top. You see he's got a little book on his pedestal. You've got some Norscan runes. Let's take a quick look. So he has a few different abilities as well. Gives leadership buffs, causes terror of course, and fear. Powerful unit. Okay, and finally we have the Frost-wyrm. This is another flying unit. I fought a couple of these in the campaign and they are pretty tough to take down. The frostbite is a very powerful effect. Can really give problems to infantry. So it's got two heads. Swing around. Let's some really nice detail on the scaly textures. And that is the last unit we'll be looking at. So as you can see, Norsca has a very diverse roster. You've got a lot of different monstrous units, ranging from the large, the mammoths, to the small, the trolls. You've got the warhounds, you've got a good selection of cavalry, chariots, infantry, ranged infantry, and some really nice different hero types. So there's a lot to pick from when you're playing Norsca. There's almost too much to pick from because you really don't know what you want to get in your armies. You've got a real good selection. You can't quite fit them all in, which is a shame, so you have to pick and choose what you want. My personal favourites are the skin wolves, and I really like the Famir as well. I've just got my first mammoth. But yeah, even later in the campaign, units like the berserkers are going to be really useful, as will the chariots. So very, very interesting roster, very large roster as well. A lot of variation. You can really mix up how you play. If you want to play as Throgg with your legendary lord, then you're going to be recruiting a lot of troll units, for example. If you're playing as Wolfric, you might be sticking more Marauder units and then mixing a few monstrous units. A lot of options, a lot of different ways you can play with the Norscan army, so it's something I'm very impressed with. I wasn't sure how interested I would be in Norsca, but they have a very, very, very cool selection of very different units, all with different abilities. They all look very different, and they really let you tailor your playstyle very differently depending on what you pick and choose. Okay, so I'm going to leave this video here, and I hope you've enjoyed this closer look at these very nice unit models, because the unit models in Warhammer are great. I'm going to be doing some of these videos for Warhammer 2 as well, but I just thought I'd do one with Norsca first because I've really been enjoying their campaign and I really like their units a lot. So if you haven't checked out my Norsca campaign, you should do so, because it's I'm not going to say it's really that good, but I'm having fun with it. Okay, and I will leave this there.